Hello, how's it going? My name is Clint Guyman. I had a question. Can generative AI distinguish authors in the Book of Mormon? Lots of great things happening with generative AI and large language models. And I wondered if there had been classification completed with the different scriptures in the Book of Mormon, or the different books. The Book of Mormon is a singular book. I say singular in that it came from an untrained and uneducated person in the 1800s, Joseph Smith. It's complex. There's lots of proper names and proper places. Yet it's simple in its message that Jesus is the Christ. And for that reason, it's been studied and circulated all over the world. And it truly is a singular book. There have been word classification studies in terms of helping to understand authorship or provide evidence of authorship, because what Joseph Smith said happened versus what some people may think is more logical. So one of the studies that was completed is that John Hilton on verifying word print studies on Book of Mormon authorship. That was done, 35 years ago. And then more recently, this group looked at using a different tool. Both of these are statistically based and uses numerical algorithms. This one discusses nearest shrunken centroid classification. I've not read either one of these in detail. But the first one clearly states that it's statistically impossible that Joseph Smith was the single author for the Book of Mormon. And this one says that it was not Joseph Smith at all, but Sidney Rigdon. So I thought it would be very interesting, and I was excited to look at this from the perspective of the large language models that have been recently developed with billions of parameters and have increased in capabilities. And so I recently took a class, this Kaggle class on generative AI, and I've done some image classification in the past and have some experience with Python and classification. And so some of the steps I've taken here in this notebook that's publicly available is first, you assume authorship for some of the books based on what was stated by Joseph Smith, so that, for instance, the Book of Mormon, in the Book of Mormon, stated that Mormon wrote that. And then some of 2nd Nephi's, there's large portions that quote from Isaiah. And then the Doctrine and Covenants is a book that Joseph Smith received. He stated by revelation and published that. And then there's also his history that he wrote. So using those books, I can say, okay, those works will go by what was stated, and then train a model and train that classification model in different ways, with and without proper nouns. And then use that model to, after it's evaluated for how well it can predict the same book, Mormon writing multiple verses, for instance, and we can compare it to other books in the Book of Mormon. So yeah, we'll go through those steps, and we'll talk first about making a classification model. And here is, we have to have data, of course. So right here, right here is importing this data set, the scriptures. So if I go to Kaggle, you can search the scriptures, search for scriptures in the data set. And I uploaded one that I found on the internet 4 years ago, and it has all of the verses for the standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's identified by these columns, and we'll run this worksheet just so you can see what exactly all the details here. Let me restart it, and so we're going to be communicating with Google's client for Generative AI to get embeddings and other important large language model parameters. And so you have to have an API key. Here's a list of all the different Gemini models that are available. This one's a little quicker, smaller and faster, and this one's this Pro version. The Flash is smaller and quicker, and the Pro is the latest and greatest. So we'll read in that data set, and here are the columns. And then here's an example of what's in that data set. So you can see there's the Old Testament and the different books. And here is the scripture text. And verse titles, or a short verse title. And all the different unique books are present. So I've chosen to look at Isaiah, Mormon, in the Book of Mormon, right here, this book, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Joseph Smith history, this guy right here. So I'm going to just pull those books out into a filtered data frame. And then, so some of the verses in the books, as you know, are fairly short. And so it can be more difficult to kind of get a trained model. We don't have a whole lot of scriptures per se, so we're going to use the large language model foundation and some of its training with the embeddings. I'll show you in a bit. But in order to get kind of a larger chunk to kind of have it chew on it, I'm combining 3 verses into one effective row, so that large language model can use that in the training. So so I've got here, after I've put those together, I've got basically 75 3-verse scriptures for my sample to choose from, or to train. So that's a really small amount compared to what was used to train the large language models. And here's kind of what that shows. So here's the scripture text, and it's a concatenation of 3 scriptures in Mormon, and this is the author, and I've just said the book title in place of the author for the Doctrine and Covenants. And then there's also inside here Joseph Smith history, but it's only printing the first 5 rows. And then in order to train the model, you have to split it into a training set and then a test set. And so you use the training set to optimize your parameters and minimize the difference between the actual author versus what the predicted author is. And then you use the test data to check how well you made your prediction, or how accurate the model is. And so here we've got 25% of the data set is for testing. So I've got those things right there. And now for embeddings. What are embeddings? So embeddings are vectors. In this case, it's 700 numbers assigned for each 3-verse subset. And those numbers in that embedding or array or vector define like the style, how the words are oriented, some of the meaning. So there's quite a bit of information in those embeddings. And we're going to use the Google AI, Generative AI model to convert the 3-verse chunks into embeddings, into a large array of numbers that kind of define its style and so forth. So this is going to take just a minute because we're going to do this for the training and the test set. And I might fast forward the video here in a minute, but it takes about 1 or 2 minutes to complete this. Okay, so I just created all those embeddings for those 75, well, it's actually 300 verse or scripture entries. So the 3-verse entries for each book. And now we're going to encode the label. So this is just giving a number, 0, 1, 2, 3, versus the author or book title. And now we're going to, using Kira's, which is another Google based model, we're going to build a classification model. And here are some of the parameters. So there's 500,000, almost 600,000 trainable parameters to be able to train a model so it predicts which book we're in. So let's do that training. And this set of instructions does that. So this is basically the accuracy, and as the higher the accuracy, the better. This is for the training set, and this is for the test set. So, right, just not too many training epics. It does a pretty good job and gets to the loss reduces and the accuracy increases. We could run it again, and the accuracy is increasing, the loss also decreasing. So yeah, you can keep doing this until it kind of levels out, which is about right there. And then, so for the test set, you can see it's about 88% accurate. If it's 1, that means that the predicted author is the same as the actual author. And let's just choose one of the entries. So here's item number 100, and it's from the Book of Isaiah. There are the 3 scriptures linked together, and then we're going to predict, use the model to predict which book that scripture is in. And you can see it's 98% confident that it's in the Book of Isaiah. And there's the relative probabilities as well for the other 3 books. So you notice that there's some proper names in here. So if I pick another verse, for instance, like there's proper names. So I thought I had to pull those proper names out. So the model could be used to like more easily train on those and make it so that it's easier to identify based on proper nouns. So I did that. Here is some of the code to remove that. And so here is the proper nouns replaced. So for this scripture back here, I've got it right here. Let's see. So here's the text, O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger. This is the scriptures in Isaiah. And you can see it replaces some of the proper names. This model isn't as effective as per se some others, but it's quicker, this NLP based model. So you can see it replaced howbeit with thought it was a place. This GPE indicates it's a place. But so we'll do that. We'll just assume that that was done properly. I didn't review all of the proper name replacements, but reviewed some of them, and until it was satisfactory. For instance, let's see if I go up here. I'll show you again. So this one is Assyrian. How about we get a different one? Still in Isaiah. So here's one from Mormon. And so it's likely, based on the model, that it's in the Book of Mormon. And then if you come down here, we can run that one. And you can see it replaces different words that can be proper names with different the capitalization. So like the Spirit is replaced there. Christ is replaced. And Christ again here. Anyway, proper names, places, and things are removed. So with that, we need to redo the embeddings. So here we'll do that. So for the training sets and the test set, we'll replace all those nouns, and then we will create the embeddings, and this will take another couple minutes. So right up here, it's about 80% accurate with including proper names. 88, around 90% accurate. It's pretty good for only 300 training set or items. So that took another minute or so. And then we're just going to check that the embeddings for a given item are different. So this shouldn't be greater than 99.9%. So that's just a check to make sure I didn't have a mistake in terms of setting my embeddings. And here's what that training set looks like. So you can see that some of the replacements were completed here. And then these are the different embeddings. And the encoded label, which means the third refers to Mormon, 0 is Doctrine and Covenants, and Isaiah is 1. Joseph Smith history is 2. So we're going to set a new classifier and train that model. Again, with about 600,000 parameters. And here we go. So you can see that accuracy increases with more training. And right here we're about 64% accurate with the test set. So we can keep training until we get, as long as that loss is falling lower. So we might be getting close to the end to not overtrain. But that looks pretty close. And we're about 80% accurate, similar to what we were with proper names. A little bit lower as expected. I think with proper names it was about 88%. So here's another example prediction from Isaiah, and there you get it's likely from the book of Isaiah. And we're going to set up a predict function to predict the test cases. And this is just using the embeddings that we found to get the results for each of our test sets. And here's our definition of the probabilities, what the different labels are indicating. So 0 was Doctrine and Covenants, 1 was Isaiah, I think that was right, check that right here. 0 Doctrine and Covenants, 1 is Isaiah, yeah, and the last one's Mormon. And we'll get a predicted column as well, so we can apply that category to what our label is, and then we'll plot a confusion matrix, because this basically is an indication of whether or not the model, how confused it is or isn't. So here from Joseph Smith history, it's saying 14 of the 17 items in the set were predicted to be from Joseph Smith history when all of them were. So 17 items were from Joseph Smith history. It predicted that 14 were there. And you can see similar from the actuals. There were 19 instances where the test set had Mormon scriptures, or 3 verse chunks from Mormon, and the model predicted 15 of those were indeed from Mormon, and 3 of them from Doctrine and Covenants, and 1 from Joseph Smith history, or similar to that. So what you want to see in a confusion matrix is no numbers outside of the diagonal. That would mean that you have 100% agreement between the model and what actually happened, which, yeah, for a complex scenario with the limited data training we have, this is a really good result. So it shows that the model is good at identifying chunks of scriptures and from where they came without the proper names present. So now we're going to take that model and apply it to things it hasn't seen yet. Scriptures from Alma and Mosiah and 2nd Nephi. So 2nd Nephi is one where, like I say, significant quoting from Isaiah occurred. And so you'd expect that there would be some Isaiah similarities from 2nd Nephi and Isaiah. And we're going to see how similar to the other books, Alma and Mosiah, are. So we have to embed those as well. So we're going to do that, and that's going to take about a minute. So the embeddings were completed, and now it's making the predictions based on those embeddings from our model. Again, with the nouns replaced. And then we're going to make another confusion matrix. In this case, I'm calling it a comparison matrix. So there were 25 for each row of 3 verse segments from 2nd Nephi, Alma, and Mosiah. And you can see the similarities between the other books. So it predicted that the scriptures from Alma are very similar to those in Mormon, and the scriptures similarly with 2nd Nephi, similar to what is in Mormon, and from Isaiah. And then there's some from Mosiah. It's similar to the Doctrine and Covenants and Mormon. So what this shows is, one, there's none of these were predicted to be from Joseph Smith history. And so there's more work that could be done here because of the style issues between significant differences with Joseph Smith history is more like a journal almost, versus the scriptures in Mormon and Isaiah and Doctrine and Covenants, if you compare those, just looking at the scriptures, the style differences are significant between Joseph Smith history and those other books. So it makes sense that none of them were predicted to be similar to Joseph Smith history. And that's why Joseph Smith history isn't even on. It's not being predicted at all, and so it's not showing anything here. So this is significant evidence that what he said he did actually is what happened, insofar that there's similarities between the different scriptures in the Book of Mormon, in that Mormon was said he abridged much of what is in Alma and Mosiah. So you get high hits here, and the influence of the Doctrine and Covenants in terms of how Joseph Smith may have received revelation is similar in the different books, but is significantly different than how he normally wrote from his own standpoint, and that it's significantly different from the book in Isaiah. So I hope you enjoyed this. There's more work that could be done here, but thank you. Have a good one.